The following is a local resident producer's program. The program content is the sole responsibility of the producer and does not necessarily reflect the views or policies of CATV2, Oshkosh Community Media Services, the City of Oshkosh, or Time Warner Cable.
Hi everyone, welcome to Ion Oshkosh. Cheryl Hentz along with Dan Rylance, and on this particular edition of Ion Oshkosh we're going to discuss something that is very topical and I think pretty important that we discuss. You can't turn to any newspaper these days or turn on any radio or TV station without hearing about swine flu, now being referred to as the H1N1 flu or the H1N1 virus. We're going to talk about why the name change, but more importantly we're going to talk about what it is, what it does, and what you can do to protect yourself from hopefully getting it. And our expert in-house tonight is Teri Shors. She is with the University of Wisconsin-Oshkosh. She is a PhD. She's associate professor in the Department of Biology and Microbiology at UW-Oshkosh. She is more simply just referred to as a virologist. So, and I got that word out without stumbling, so that's good. Thanks so much for being here.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you for inviting me.
We appreciate it. You know, this, as I said, you can't turn on a radio or a TV anywhere these days without hearing about this. So maybe the best place to start is, you know, what is swine flu, and then we'll get into the other things. What are we dealing with here?
Swine flu is a virus. It's an influenza virus. It causes influenza in pigs. It can also cause influenza in humans. This particular virus we're talking about, though, probably came from humans. There's no evidence that it actually came from pigs. In fact, now there's a pig farm in Canada that does test positive, but they think that the farmer gave it to the pigs. So it went from humans to pigs.
Okay.
So it's an influenza virus. Influenza viruses are found in pigs, they're found in humans, they're found in usually wild waterfowl, ducks, geese carry influenza viruses. They don't get sick, they poop them out. They may be aerosoled, and then a pig may get it if it's in an area, or a human may get it if it's in an area.
So pigs can transfer swine flu to humans. Humans can get a human version and transfer it to pigs.
Sure.
You know, I remember, and this, of course, they have changed the name, and we'll get into why, but a number of years ago, there was an actual swine flu that was going around.
Right,
correct?
that was
and that
back
was
in the
the true
70s.
swine flu.
Right.
Right, I believe so. And that was in the 70s, and we were very concerned that it could cause a pandemic. And we were thinking about the 1918 pandemic that had occurred. And at that time, our technology was only able to tell us that we thought the 1918 strain was actually a swine strain. Turns out it's more related to a bird strain, actually.
Okay.
So we were panicked. We thought, is this going to be like 1918? And we went ahead and made mass, amounts of vaccine and distributed that.
Okay.
Actually, it's in Teri's book.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, the
and,
reference is...
Ford
we'll just
administration.
hold this up, and you don't have to necessarily zoom in on it, but this is what the cover of her book looks like. It is, what is the name of it? I can't.
Understanding Viruses.
All right, there we go.
Pretty appropriate, huh?
Yes, it's a textbook.
Right.
So, but certainly if somebody wants to read it.
But
it
in
is
reference to what you
available for
just
sale
said, there was
online.
a swine flu scare at Fort Dix, New Jersey in 1976, and one in Russia in 1977, and both are in the book.
Right.
Well, let's talk about this particular thing because all of a sudden this has just, in the last couple of weeks or so, just we're hearing about it everywhere we go, everywhere we turn. And we're taping this on May 7th. 1 week ago, the World Health Organization, I believe it was, decided to change the name. They're no longer going to call it or refer to it as swine flu. It is now the H1N1 virus.
Right.
I know a lot of media is still referring to it as the swine flu, maybe out of habit, maybe they're just behind the times and don't know about the change yet. But, you know, so if you're hearing us refer to H1N1, it is otherwise known as the swine flu, which is what so many people have been talking about. So, you know, how did this come about? I mean, we don't really know where it came from, do we?
No, we're still trying to figure it out. It seems like the epicenter is Mexico, and lots of cases started occurring in Mexico, and it hit the news media that there were thousands of people that were very ill and hundreds dying, and the media picked up on that. In retrospect, though, now when we're looking back at confirmed cases, and I have the numbers today, Mexico actually has 1,112 laboratory confirmed cases and just 42 confirmed deaths related to swine flu.
Okay, so because you're putting on your mic there, people may not have caught that. 1,112 confirmed cases and 42 confirmed deaths?
Related to swine flu, right. Or H1N1, I should say.
See, you're doing it yourself.
Yes,
it's an easy thing to, you know, exactly.
Right.
It is habitual. So, okay, go ahead, Dan.
Well, why did they change it to H1N1? We've announced that. What?
Right, because there's no proof that it came from pigs.
Okay.
I think there was all this hype. There's these large pig farms in Mexico, and it seems like the people are upset about these large farms, and they're some of where it started was near a large pig farm, but none of these pigs tested positive. There's no proof, and so that was. And also, when we look at the strain genetically, we look at it. We've been able to sequence it and look at it. What is this strain? It actually has bird information. It has pig and human components to it. So it's a mutt of a strain actually, but the media picked up on pig, and that's stuck.
Yeah.
And
we can't get rid of swine.
We can't. Yeah, right. And to the point where pork sales have been down, and there shouldn't be sales that are going down.
So the H1N1 virus has existed before.
Right.
And so they have put this in that category of a virus now.
Right.
Okay, so it's not a new virus, it's an old one.
One that's changing.
Changing, okay.
Right. Evolving.
Help us understand this, Teri. How does one go about, first of all, how do they go about determining exactly what virus it is or what strain of something it is? Because in order to create some kind of, you know, not antibiotic necessarily, but some kind of a vaccine to counter the effects of this,
right.
You have to know exactly what you're dealing with.
Sure.
And that obviously takes a lot of precision. So
right.
Help us understand how they go about figuring all this out.
We're now to a point in science where our technology is absolutely incredible. So they can take a sputum sample from a patient and they can put it in several different machines, and they can actually look at the genetic material, sequence all the bases, and figure out what it's related to. They can look at these sequences and compare it to what is this, and then they figured out right away it's influenza, and then they're able to compare that to past strains that we have available.
So before they would give a vaccine to a person, would they take that sample from that person so that they're not prescribing something or giving them a vaccination for something that they may not have?
Well, what you have to do is you have to figure out what virus is infecting people, and then grow a whole bunch of that virus up and turn it into a vaccine.
Okay.
And so we haven't decided yet, is it going to be in, say, next year's annual flu shot? The president has said we haven't decided that yet. We just have to see what's going to happen with this virus. Right now, it's not a very severe virus compared to seasonal flu, the typical flus we have. It's nothing like that. Typically, you know, Dan and I were talking about this, 36,000 people die a year in the United States of complications related to the flu. We've had 2 deaths. We've had, I believe, 896 confirmed cases now, 26 in Wisconsin.
Yeah, and the one American who died was a woman in her 30s, I believe, who had some other chronic health issues.
She's pregnant. Right.
And the other one that happened in the U.S. was actually a child from visiting here from Mexico, I believe, right?
That's correct.
So actually only one, of course, one is one too many, but unfortunately, you know, it happened.
Right.
Only one confirmed U.S. citizen who has died as a result of this. So if someone has symptoms, they go to the doctor, how are they treated right now?
If you have a very high fever, that's one of the main symptoms that kick in. You would, just like a rapid strep test, they'd probably do a throat swab, and then that sample would be sent to the state laboratory right now. That's what would be done. In you know, otherwise, typical seasonal flu, they can do a rapid test in the doctor's office. Say you have influenza A or B, you just treat the symptoms, typically. If it's very severe, they may give you Tamiflu if they've caught it early enough, which is a drug that can reduce the symptoms.
Okay.
But you have to take it like that first day of symptoms.
Okay. All right.
We have like mad cow and bird flu and swine flu. What's the relationship with agriculture or food production with all of these names that we come up with?
You know, I can't tell you, as far as just teaching you about viruses,
Yeah.
there is a virus that can infect every form of life on Earth. And if you mingle with animals, you could possibly get their viruses. Animals carry viruses, people carry viruses, we give them back and forth. That's
Just
what
happens that some of these recent ones get an animal or a bird name to it.
Right, if it's going from a bird to a human, sometimes you may do those sorts of things.
Okay.
Right.
Now I've known you a long time, and one of your great studies was you did an exhaustive study of the Spanish influenza in Oshkosh or Winnebago County.
Right.
Who died in that epidemic?
No, you know, you can't single out an occupation or a particular person. About 185 people died in Winnebago County in 1918. But
weren't
it
they
tended to
stronger
be
people?
right,
Yeah.
people between the ages of 20 to 40. And that's again why this H1N1 strain started scaring the experts out there. In Mexico, apparently, it was people between the ages of 20 to 40 were dying when this first started.
So they're thinking Spanish influenza right away.
Right, they're freaking out. The other thing is it's a mutt of a strain. They analyze it, they said it's a mutt. No one has immunity to this strain, and we don't. So that's another cause for concern. If nobody has immunity, everybody's vulnerable.
Okay.
And so I think the right things happened. I mean, I think that we aggressively came forth and started saying, hey, we have to make sure that we do all the right things. If there's Tamiflu available to all the different states, if we need it, make sure it's there. But it just turned out that this strain is sort of not as deadly and dangerous as we thought it was going to be.
And yet everybody's talking about it, including us. Although I think we're talking about it for a different reason. We're talking about it to inform, but also to kind of put things in perspective.
Sure.
You know, so that we're not having people, you know, flipping out. And, you know, putting things in perspective, you had alluded to this before. A typical U.S. flu season, you said 35,000 deaths occur each season, like between the months of November through March, from complications of just what we considered to be the regular flu. And then you've broken it down, and thank God you did, because my math is horrible. 7,000 deaths per month equals 230 deaths per day. And last flu season, 13,000 deaths in the U.S., which breaks down to 87 deaths per day. And, you know, that is, as you noted, in excess of the current pandemic that we see out there. And, you know, not to downplay those figures either, because 87 deaths is 87 deaths that, you know,
one too many.
we would have hoped not to have happened. But, you know, things do happen in this world. But that is far greater than what we're dealing with right here.
Exactly.
And yet, you know, you see signs everywhere about
Right.
do this, do that. One thing that occurred to me, I read this, and you working at the university, I'm sure you've gotten a memo on this probably, or seen it somewhere at the graduation ceremonies
Sure.
later this month.
Seen it in the news.
They're not going to be shaking your hand as they hand out diplomas,
Right.
because they don't want to spread this disease, and they're also going to be handing out packets of hand sanitizer.
Right.
Is this an overreaction?
You know, I thought about this, and I thought about, well, I think, you know, it's okay for, say, the chancellor to shake a graduate's hand because they're all on campus and nobody has flu here.
Okay.
But there are people coming in from other parts of the state that do test positive. And so I think it's probably a good idea. There could be someone in that crowd incubating the virus. And this crowd, this gathering, is a great place to spread disease. So I
Better
think,
to be safe.
Yeah, I do. I think, you know, it's okay for, you know, like I said, the chancellor to shake the hands of individual graduates, but, you know, they've decided not to. In a way, well, that graduate could touch another person that may be positive, so I guess they're handling it the right way.
So can you get it then? I mean, how is this passed, Teri? Explain.
Airborne. All
Okay.
you have to do is breathe. You know, it could be,
So shaking hands isn't going to change anything one way or the other.
no, but it's another way to spread it. So coughing, sneezing, talking, airborne transmission typically.
We could
Maybe-
be passing it right here.
maybe
I
no
have
one
a cold
should-
right now.
Maybe no one should speak at the commencement.
Maybe no one should just go.
Oh.
We don't want to
Yeah,
encourage
right.
that, but I mean,
Right.
you know.
Well, let's stay on this a little bit. You know, we live in this 24-hour news cycle. As a scientist, what's your opinion, Ben, of the coverage?
I think it's been really blown out of proportion. I don't understand the coverage in Mexico. I think that's where the reporting there has been so inaccurate. They're saying thousands of people are ill, hundreds are dying, and now today I have the numbers 42 deaths. And so I guess
Is this local Mexican media, or-
I'm not really sure.
Yeah.
I mean, and I do show a lot of clips in my classes each day. I keep them because they're very interested in it, and I do keep up with it. I don't know what happened, but at least, you know, here we are going back and saying, look, it's not as bad. And so we are, at least we're not still playing with the hype,
Okay.
which I think is excellent. It's been interesting to see what happens. So I've been teaching my students. In 1918, we came up with all these snake oil remedies and things like that. Well, now, if you go on the internet, this is happening. Same thing. Find your cure for swine flu. There's all kinds of colloidal silver water drinks and shampoo that can kill the virus. And it's just funny. So it is interesting to see. We're seeing some of the same things that happened in 1918 as we are seeing right now.
How well is the city of Oshkosh prepared? Let's say,
Or
just-
Winnebago County.
or Winnebago County. Let's say we had 2,000 cases of
Right.
H1. Are our facilities equipped to handle that many people?
I'm not sure.
Uh-huh.
I mean, I was on the Board of Health a couple of years ago, and they were working on a plan at that time.
Uh-huh.
But I'm not sure. I mean, I think a plan is in place. The university has a plan, but you never know until it really happens. You know, I think at the state level we're doing quite well. So
What does H1N1 actually stand for? Does it stand for something in particular, or is it just some scientific things that scientists threw together here?
oh, they just like to make up funny names. Actually, the outside of the virus, virus is like think of it as like just a solid sphere of, you know, a couple different molecules. It's just sort of, I call it a molecular package. It's just like this, think of it as like a ball. Well, the outside of it has two very important proteins. The flu virus does. It has an H protein and an N protein. And this is where we get the H and the N.
Okay.
And they change from year to year. When you have a pandemic strain, they change drastically, and then nobody's immune, and everybody's vulnerable.
Okay.
So it's an H1N1 type. There's actually 16 different types of H's you can have in terms of on the outside, and I think 13 different types of N's you can have. This happens to be H1 and N1.
So next year we could have an H2N2.
3 or something, right.
Okay. All right. Well, having changed the name from swine flu to H1N1, you know, I'm sure that the intent was, in some part anyway, to help the pork industry. You know, do you think it will help in the long run, or do people still mentally have this in their brain that it's swine flu?
I think mentally, I think we have more of a science illiterate population of people, it doesn't take much to put fear into people. Although I think I did see Fox 11 ran a couple of stories, and it seems like sales are starting to go back up again.
Yeah.
So there was
You
a little
can't
bit
get
of
it
fear.
from eating pork, right?
No, not at all.
No.
You can't get it from
Yeah.
eating pork.
I mean, you can get some things from eating undercooked pork,
Yes.
but it's not
Yeah.
this.
Right,
You know?
right.
So, let's talk about the symptoms. You sort of alluded to them before, but what are
Right.
the symptoms of the H1N1 virus?
High fever, dry cough, typical, congestion,
Aches and pains?
aches and pain, very achy,
Okay.
Malaysia, very achy, lots of pain, just like typical flu. This one, sometimes people had diarrhea and vomiting. That's not always the case. Nausea can be another one. But the big one is fever, headache, cough, congestion, some sniffles, but nothing like, like a rhinovirus, which is typically just real
So
runny
you do
nose.
Tylenol and aspirin and lots of liquids? Is that what you?
Right. If you have a really high fever, you might want to go to the doctor. Say it's 103, 104.
Okay.
That might give you Tamiflu, and that would severely reduce the symptoms really quickly, pretty well.
Well, I think so many people lately have been dealing with bronchitis. I
Right.
mean,
Right.
your wife
Yeah.
was, I did.
Right.
I've known some other people who have had
Right.
it, and they just can't get rid of it. And somebody said, "Oh, maybe you got swine flu." I said, "No, I don't have swine flu. It's been clearly diagnosed as
Right.
acute bronchitis." So, but anyway,
Right.
it's nice that they thought that anyway. So how can people go about protecting themselves in different environments? Let's talk about going to work, first of all. And I'm
Going to
sure it
work.
varies depending on where you work.
Sure.
But just in general, if you work in an office or a factory,
Right.
what are some of the things you
BBC
can do?
News had a nice little clip, and their catchphrase is, it's catch it, bin it, and kill it. I don't know, have you seen that?
No.
no.
Explain.
So
No.
catch it is catch it in a Kleenex, bin it, put it in a wastebasket, and then when you have time, wash your hands, kill it.
Oh.
And that's a good little rule to follow, is catch it, bin it, kill it.
Okay.
I kind of like that. The best rules are, if you're sick, stay home. That's the best things you can do. If you cough in your shoulder, wash your hands a lot, frequent hand washing. But this is one of those things where, for instance, for me, professors don't stay home. We go to work sick. We probably make others sick. There's no substitute college professor. If you teach high school or grade school, you might be able to have a substitute. So we kind of contribute in a way because we don't take off.
That's a good point.
Well, and I do think, it's easy for all of us to say, if you're sick, stay home.
Right.
Because none of us want to get it. I mean, I work for myself, so
Right.
I don't have many choices here. But,
Sure.
in this day and age, when people are already worried about losing their jobs,
Right.
And you've already got other people who are calling in sick.
Sure.
I think a lot of people are a little reluctant to call in sick because for
exactly.
fear of getting fired or
Right.
or being punished in some way at work. But still, they should stay home. You're saying.
Exactly. The school closings were quite difficult on many people, and Obama did have come forth and say, please, open the schools again. This isn't what we thought it was going to be. And he realized the extent to which it's hurting a lot of parents. I think over 300,000, kids, were at home. That's really tough when they aren't really sick. They're just staying home and schools are closed. Yet the school is the place where you do want to close them if it is a severe situation because it spreads so quickly through a school.
Well, and travel to Mexico,
Right.
has that not, now I don't recall exactly what I read, because I just caught a glimpse of it, but weren't they saying that it was okay to travel to
Yes.
Mexico again now?
Yep.
And yet you still see people taking precautions.
Sure.
One of our crew members was going to be going to Mexico and is not now. They're going to go somewhere else. And
Right.
I know last week or the week before, a lot of the major cruise lines were
Right.
not going there, but at that time we didn't have quite the information that we do today.
There's some college 2 or 3 week courses have been canceled
Right,
in
Eau
various
Claire.
schools. Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, even some of the trips, the field trips from our local school going down to Mexico, going down to Milwaukee even,
Right.
they were canceled because
Right.
people just didn't know.
Right.
you know. So
Yeah, I have
think,
a conference in Appleton that was canceled, you know, which I didn't expect that.
yeah.
One of the things, that, and maybe this is sort of analogous back to your Spanish influenza again, didn't it start up and then went away and then came back stronger?
There was a second wave the following
Okay.
year, but it didn't get as much much press.
What do you think of the accounts now that are coming out this week that, well, it's going to go dormant, but you wait till winter?
Right. I think the media likes to build that hype. We can't predict. You know, viruses, every time you're infected with a virus, it can mutate in your body. Who knows what you're, you know, what's coming out of you.
We have millions of vaccines for this, don't we? I mean,
For different strains.
different strains.
Right.
But we haven't developed one for this one.
No, Baxter's working on one right now.
Okay.
They have, it's called the seed stock. They now know what this virus is. They have some of this virus, and they can build vaccine from it.
More than likely that will be in the flu shots that we get this fall? Or too
Hard to
early
say. If it turns out, you know, we've only had 2 deaths, how can we justify that compared to other strains that cause more problems?
So it's really too early to tell.
Right. I think it'd be safe to make a bunch of the vaccine, and then if it turns out to be something that's horrible, we can have a second vaccination or something like that.
One thing that I find interesting about this whole thing, Teri, is you know, when you talk about getting the flu shot, people say, well, the elderly should get it, and,
Right.
and those who are more susceptible to getting things, they should get it. And yet this particular virus,
Right.
this particular kind of flu, seems to be more aggressive and more prevalent in people who are healthy
Strong and
and
healthy.
stronger. Why is that?
I think, like what happened in 1918, people that had healthy immune systems, their immune system overreacted to the virus. It was fighting it so hard. Their lungs would fill up with all these immune cells, and people's lungs would fill up 6 times their normal size with all this fluid, which was simply immune cells trying to attack those viruses. There's a phenomenon, they call it cytokine storm, where all these cytokines in your body are telling all these immune cells to go to the lungs and clear this virus out of there. That's what was happening, is their lungs were filling up with fluid and they were dying of, you know, this fluid buildup. They're drowning in their own lungs. So when you're healthy, you can react really strongly to viruses. And it's just some viruses trigger this cytokine storm and some don't.
Okay.
Well, it's a good thing most of them don't. Otherwise, it wouldn't be a good
And
situation.
that was the case in
With
your study,
1918,
yeah, that,
right.
it really hit strong people.
Right.
Yeah.
SARS also did something similar.
Okay.
And also with the avian flu, the bird flu, which there aren't that many human cases, but it does cause this cytokine storm, which is why we are concerned about it.
Now you do research. I know you have labs.
Right.
Are you going to have any of this H1N1?
No.
No. Okay.
Short answer.
Well, yeah, you want to get rid of that right away.
Yeah.
Oh, we've got this
unless
professor
there's somebody
at
I don't like. Let's see. No.
So we talked about how to protect yourself in the workplace. You know, I think that what you mentioned that you saw on BBC,
Right.
that's probably good for all situations.
Sure.
But you know, when you are in large situations like a commencement ceremony,
Right.
or if you're traveling on a plane, you know, on a plane, you're so susceptible to
Right.
getting things anyway,
Right.
just because of the closed environment and recycled air. Are the precautions any greater or different in situations like that?
If you can, wash your hands. You know, if you're on a plane and you know someone has the flu, which, you know, that's not going to happen because they're probably not going to let you fly, wear a mask. You know, we have special masks. They're called N95 masks that should keep viruses out. But, and you saw, I'm sure you saw clips in Mexico where people
Yes.
were wearing masks, and the Army was handing out masks. That will help also to keep out the virus.
Yeah, well, and they were complaining down there that they didn't have enough masks
Right.
to go
Right.
around, really. So,
Right.
Let's face it, an airplane is
Horrible air.
a horrible air to travel with, even
Right.
without this, you know?
Yeah,
People
right.
get
Yeah.
sick all the time going on
Sure.
airplanes.
Yeah.
you know?
Tuberculosis is,
Absolutely.
you know, there's proven cases of that transmission on an airplane.
yeah. Well, you know, and again, to put this into a little bit better perspective, you know, you did talk about just the regular flu. In recent years, we've heard more and more about people, very healthy people in some cases, dying from complications of pneumonia.
Right.
I mean, what is that all about?
Well, you get one virus, and it makes you sick. But if you don't take care of yourself, you are susceptible to a secondary infection. Oftentimes it's caused by bacterium. So it's called secondary bacterial pneumonia. So some people, if they're run down, they've got the influenza, they're run down, they're starting to feel better, and then they start, going way too hard at work or whatever, they get a secondary infection. And that's usually actually what people die of, especially the elderly, is a pneumonia, a bacterial pneumonia infection.
Okay.
That's the main complication, is bacterial pneumonia.
Okay.
Okay, Professor. What did you learn about this that you didn't learn about viruses? Is there anything new to this at all?
I was a little bit upset that I didn't notice it first.
Okay.
It was April 24th when this just started hitting, and I had an email from a former student in another state saying, "Have you seen this?" And I'm like, "No." I was upset because usually I see everything.
Yeah.
But I follow bird flu, and that's what we're all scared about, because the bird flu is 62% lethal. That is very bad numbers, but it's not very efficient person to person. So we're watching this one. So I keep watching bird flu, and then this swine flu comes out, and I've got people that I've taught way out there saying, "Hey, what's going on here?" And then all of a sudden it was like, there were like over 1,000 articles that day on the 24th about what's going on in Mexico. And I was taken aback because I didn't realize it would be swine.
But there's nothing
It
unique
turns out
in the
now
virus.
that it's actually a mutt.
A mutt.
Right, I call it a mutt because
mutt.
it's bird, human, and pig.
Okay.
So, and there's no immunity to it, and yet it's not causing all these deaths that I thought it could. I think it took everybody by surprise.
Well, see, I think it's just interesting that you can have bird, human, and pig all kind of combined. I mean,
Right.
how does something like that happen? Do you have a person maybe getting it from a bird and then they're passing it along to a pig, or?
Well, what happens is typically, picture like a farm yard or an open range where all these animals are out there. Well, one pig picks up, say, 3 different viruses in one cell, and then their genetics shuffle around. That's what happens, is one cell is infected with like 3 different strains, and then they recombine in this unique way. So, we're just sort of like these hosts for these viruses, and we shuffle their genes around and create these new viruses. It's pretty cool, actually. To me.
Well, you're a scientist, though.
What-
That's your
Right.
field.
You said you're interested in bird flu. What research are you doing right now?
I'm not researching, I follow it.
Okay.
Because I'm very concerned. It's 62% fatal
The bird flu.
in humans,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Very
What's
few
the
cases.
percent of this one?
Way less than
Way less.
1.0.
Okay,
blah,
we're
blah, blah.
off the table.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
But we don't want to start an avian flu epidemic or a
Right.
pandemic either
Right.
here. So
The 1918 flu was 4%
Okay.
fatal in the United States. So that gives you some figures to sort of give you a better feel for it.
well, in closing, do you have any words of wisdom for viewers, Teri?
Words of wisdom. That's really like vague.
Well, just something that you can impart to viewers to, I guess, keep them calm, keep their fears at
Right.
bay.
I would just say be reasonable. Like I said, wash your hands. If you're sick, stay home if you can. If your kids are sick, stay home. Do everything you've been doing. I think we've been doing quite well.
Is there a particular website that is better than others that they could go to?
Oh, sure. The CDC has a very good site, www.cdc.gov/H1N1. Will give you the latest, current, most up-to-date numbers and information.
Okay. All right. Excellent. Well, thanks so much for being here.
Oh,
Thanks,
we
Cheryl.
appreciate
All
it.
right.
It's fascinating
Thank
stuff.
you.
And we're going to take a very short break. When we come back, we'll be joined by the people who were on here, at least one of the people who was on here a few months back, talking about First Robotics. So we'll be right back.
Dear Mom and Dad, well, I finally have some time off, so I'm writing to tell you that I'm doing well. We have good days and bad days over here. We try to remember the good ones and get through the bad ones. Mostly we have each other, and that's what keeps us going. And Mom, since you asked, If anyone wants to help, just tell them to contact the USO. You can't believe how much they do for us. With love, your son, Michael.
Every year, the U.S. Department of the Treasury receives about 1.4 million reports of problems with paper checks. Checks can be lost, stolen, or delayed. If you still receive Social Security payments by paper check, Treasury wants you to know about a safer, more convenient way to get your money. The Direct Express Prepaid Debit MasterCard. The Direct Express card is new and is available to anyone receiving Social Security benefits, even if you don't have a bank account. Your monthly benefits will be automatically placed onto your card account each month on the day your money is due. While other debit cards cost money, it is possible to use the Direct Express card for free to make purchases, pay bills, and get cash at thousands of locations nationwide. There are no sign-up or monthly account fees. No more waiting for the mail or worrying about lost or stolen checks. Call 1-877-212-9991 or visit www.usdirectexpress.com.
We're in an emergency situation. We don't have extra. We have a little bit of water and a little bit of food. A meeting place, no.
No.
I don't think we have a first aid kit.
We have tuna fish, we have
Right.
beans, we have canned tomatoes,
True.
you know.
That's true, but that's really not survival food. Tomato paste.
Yeah, well, yeah.
And welcome back to the second half of Eye on Oshkosh. We're joined now by a young man who was here once before, Bryce Nickelbein, and he was here before with an engineer from a local company, and they were talking about the first robotics program. Komal is here tonight, but she's in the background. She's going to be assisting. Instead, we're joined on camera by Chris Veerhoff. He's a project engineer with Oshkosh Corp, and you know, they're going to give us an update on the first robotics program here in Oshkosh. It's the first one that we've ever had here, no pun intended. And we actually have the robot here with us this evening that we're going to be taking a look at in a little bit. But you know, first of all, before we get into that, for viewers who may not have seen the first show when you were on with Komal, explain for us what First Robotics is so that people have an understanding.
Well, FIRST is really, FIRST is an acronym for Inspiration and Recognition of Science and Technology. It was created to get kids off the mindset that they have to be a professional athlete, they have to be a lawyer, they have to be a doctor. There is other pathways like in engineering or something down the science and technology road. Dean came in as the founder of First Robotics. He's also the inventor of the Segway. And so it's really pretty much it just is like getting kids off the mindset of
it really is a program to promote science and technology, but it's all encompassing too. We're really trying to bring in all types of kids and promote different parts of the business from a local group standpoint. It may have started off as science and technology, but it has grown into much more of, you know, it's a business. There's different aspects to it. There's marketing, there's accounting, and so it's getting all the kids involved. And you could see that at the national competition, that, you know, there are a lot of different kids there, and they weren't necessarily involved in the engineering portion of it. They may have been involved in the promotions part of it, or handing out flyers or scouting or all those types of things.
Sure.
Yeah.
And we mentioned you're with Oshkosh Corporation, which this involves not just students from all the different schools in the area, not just the public school, but some of the parochial schools are involved in this as well. And Oshkosh Corp is one of the companies that's involved. Komal is with Triangle Manufacturing. They're a partner in this program. It's a number of different companies within the area that are partnering and sort of mentoring today's youth, and they're providing materials, in some cases probably some financial backing, and of course professional expertise as well, right?
Yeah, really it's nice to have the local area companies helping out and providing those types of resources for these kids. I mean, it's great that they can be introduced to this early on and maybe make a decision on what type of path they want to proceed down. So it's great that these companies can get involved, provide mentors for the kids, provide financial backing, and get them introduced to the companies in the area. I know that we've just had a couple more sponsors just come on to help us out too. I believe Bemis Corporation has come on, as well as Penau is a new sponsor, and then PACCAR. But we're getting more participation from the different businesses too, and it's also, I think, has been referred to as providing talents as well as financial resources. So it's great to get those people in industry involved and really help to mentor the kids.
And NASA did provide some financial backing as well with a grant. And how much was that grant?
$6,000.
Yeah.
When
Significant.
we had him here last time, maybe you can update us on how far they went. Remember last time?
They were still building the robot.
You were just building the robot. You had so many days, and you were getting near it. And what happened after that? Take us through how far you went.
Well, I believe when we talked to you, we were about 4 or 5 weeks into the build season.
You were.
And the build season was 6 weeks and like 3 days, I believe.
Okay.
And so after we talked to you, we got our robot done, which is behind me.
Yes.
We shipped our robot, and then our first competition was in Milwaukee, and we took Rookie All-Star there, which qualified us to go to nationals. But then we also had a competition in Minneapolis, Minnesota, that we took Rookie All-Star, and then we also won the competition. Like our actual robot won the competition, and so we double qualified.
It's amazing,
nationals.
isn't it?
Yes,
Huh?
it is.
It
That's
was
great.
It was amazing.
Yeah.
And then you went to the Nationals.
Yes, and we did extremely well there.
Okay.
We did extremely well. I would have hopefully got to like the finals, but we weren't picked, so
Yeah.
but I can't complain.
Oh,
Rookie
you had a great run.
Yeah, rookie team to the nationals.
Oh,
It was-
Well,
it was
and
great.
especially for the first time, which
Yes.
that's why the rookie. But so now, and we're going to take a look at the robot in a minute or two. But Chris, you mentioned that there's other companies coming on board. So even though this robot is done and this round of competition is done, this is going to be an ongoing thing.
Yes, we're trying to build a foundation for the future, and to get companies involved, and to make it a sustainable thing. There's other groups in this area, Fond du Lac and Appleton. They both have robotics team, and they've been going for many years now, and they have successful robotics team. So they have been providing resources to us to help us out, and so we want to really mimic some of the things they're doing. They've built a successful team, and hopefully we can do the same thing as them and kind of follow their lead.
Okay.
But yeah, having corporate sponsors is a big help, financially as well as talent.
Sure. And the name of your team is Wave Robotics.
Yes, and
you've got
look at
the
that.
T-shirts on. Dan's the only one who doesn't have a shirt with a name or a logo on it tonight. I'm so sorry. Well, we'll try and fix that in some way. All right, so does the robot have a name?
It's called the land shark,
The land
The
shark.
land shark.
just
Okay.
to go along the
Okay.
like
Kind of
the water
Okay.
theme.
Very good. And it's a much bigger robot than I anticipated, and it doesn't look anything like. When I think of a robot, I think of something that has a head and arms and legs, and I think
Yeah.
that's what a lot of people think of
Like
as
a
a
domo
robot.
arigato.
Yeah, yeah.
We
Something
should
like
have them
that.
explain
So-
how they play this game,
Yeah.
because that, in part, is why it's built like that. Is,
Yes.
right?
So let's take a look at this robot and see what it does,
Yeah.
how the game is
Right.
played, and so forth.
So first off, we have to tow a trailer with our robot, and we have a hitch behind it, which you can't see. And then the balls that are in the hopper.
Looks like
top
those
part-
helmets there.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, one
All
of
right.
these balls.
Okay.
They're called random orbit balls.
Random orbit balls.
Random orbit balls.
Okay.
And we have to try to score these balls into our opponent's trailers.
Okay.
And so this is why we are designed. We want it like high so we can dump into our trailer. The trailer probably stands 3.
2 to 3 feet. It has a cascading type effect around it. Some posts protruding up from the trailer, and so probably at the highest point is probably feet, and maybe at the lowest point it's 2 feet.
Okay.
How many of these are on the floor at the same time?
6.
Okay.
And do they all look like this?
No.
No.
Okay. So they're all different designs.
Yes, they're all.
Okay.
They're anywhere from like a small wooden box. And that's how
Well, we didn't see that at all because that camera wasn't on. So maybe we can reload.
All right. Yeah, like there's anywhere from what we have right here, like the bigger box, the dumper kind of mechanism.
Okay, let's see that one more time.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so it shoots the balls
Like a
out.
game show.
And
Yes. And then we have a way of sucking the balls up from the floor, that if there is any on the floor, that conveyor, it just kind of brings it up.
oh, I see. Okay,
Yes.
let's see that again. That's good. Very nice.
Yes. And
Oh, look at it. Moving around.
Oh, it moves too. Look at
it
that.
does move.
And does it just go front and backwards?
No,
or
we
does
actually have,
Oh, look at that. Look at that.
for any engineers watching, we have a 3-wheel crab drive, which allows us to move our robot, like, we can turn all of our wheels like this way, and so we can actually go this way, and we also can spin on ourselves. So we can turn our front wheels this way, our back wheel
That's
this
clearly
way.
important in playing, isn't it?
Yes,
Yes.
it is.
Do other ones have the same thing or not necessarily?
There was only, I only saw one with a 3-wheel crab
Okay.
drive. There's other with like 4-wheel crab drives, but I only saw one other with like a 3-wheel crab drive.
We had a fairly unique drive system
Oh, I like
that
that,
was gave us some extra mobility when we're trying to get around and pick up these balls, because you have this playing field that's you know, a pretty good size, probably 120 feet by 60 feet, somewhere in there, and you have these robots driving around, and it's easy with robots this size to get caught up in a corner, and being able to maneuver was really part of our strategy.
So the
for
design of
robot.
this is strictly what you people did?
Yes.
Yes. The only generic thing is the brain, or it's the same for all of them.
Yes, all like the steering mechanism
Okay.
and the internet, like that's connecting, is the same for everything.
Okay.
And it starts off as first supplies you a kit of parts.
Okay.
And so then you build up from that kit, and you may acquire parts, but they do supply you with a base kit when you first start out. So then
No
you're
one
able
can
to
cheat.
yes,
It supplies you with the wheels, because for this year it was trying to simulate us landing on the moon, like because it's our 40th anniversary of us on the moon, and like the game was actually called Lunacy, and there was like slippery wheels and then a slippery floor, so it emulated the 1/6 gravity of the moon, and so they were sliding. Robots were sliding all over the place, and so they gave you the wheels, a couple motors. You could always like buy more. What else did they? That's pretty much what they gave us: the wheels and the motors, and a couple other things. Just that like they gave everybody.
And there's a list of rules too. The weight of the robot, I believe, can't exceed
120.
So everybody gets
Right.
weighed and inspected before the competition.
Yeah, and we're
These all have to be the same?
Those all have to be
Okay.
the same.
Okay.
And does the weight include the weight
No.
of the balls, or is it
They-
just the machine without
just
the
the
balls?
machine without the blue bumpers on the side,
Okay.
and we were at 119.6. Just
Not
under
a lot
one.
of wiggle room
No,
there.
not at all.
Where do we go from here?
Right.
You have another? You gonna have a baby or
Next year, like right now, all we're doing is recruiting and fundraising.
Okay.
Like we're showing our robot off to the city.
Okay.
Like on Tuesday, we showed it off to Oshkosh West. We had it up on the stage there.
Neat.
Next week, we're taking it to Oshkosh North, and then we have a couple other things. And then there's a couple of summer competitions. Like there's one in Minneapolis that we're going to, and one in Sussex, Wisconsin. And then we're just like fundraising, like brat fries, stuff like that. And then next year on the first Saturday in January, whole new game, whole new 6 weeks.
Okay.
And so,
Well, I want to ask
go ahead.
about, where you get the idea for the design. Now, I talked with someone who's involved in a robotics program in another part of the country, and what they do there for their competitions is, there's different types of robots that you can choose from. I'll call them templates, for lack of a better word. You pick what type you want to build, and then you go about building it. That's not what you've done here. Here, this is a concept that, who developed this?
Well, like we got the plans on, I think it was like 8 a.m. Saturday morning, January 3rd, and then
Got that down.
yeah,
And everybody starts on that
That's
day.
it.
yes,
Yeah,
They have
like there's a live webcast,
Okay.
Okay.
and then for that Saturday, I think it was 10 hours. We were just talking strategy.
Uh-huh.
What do we want to do? How do we want to do it? Like the concept of like the game, getting everybody like introduced to the game, and then the first couple meetings after that was strictly strategy, and then we started working on design. Like we found out what we wanted to do, and then we decided how and what is it going to look like.
You got to do some conceptual design in there and do a little bit of, once you do some of the conceptual stuff, you really need to build some prototypes to see if you really can pick up a ball like that. And we were built some conveyors, built some drive systems. Maybe it wasn't necessarily on this final platform here, but we built it on wood platform, wood bases and stuff like that. So we're building up this concept that we're trying out to see, does it work, or maybe we can tweak this a little bit this way to really get the robot to function the way we want it to function.
How much was the design instrumental in you going as far as you did?
Hugely.
Huge.
Yes, because the most successful robots look like ours. They were the dumper robots that could score 10, 15 balls in one dump.
Okay.
And so the best ones were like the same, like they just fit in the limit of like the box that we had to fit in by 24, 36, and 5 feet. I think it was somewhere around there. And so they're the bigger, the dumper ones like ours.
So the design is very important.
Yes.
Yeah, and there was, when you went to the national competition, you could definitely see a trend in kind of the way people think differently, but then they all kind of, with the different tools you have, let's say you have motors and stuff like that, there was another type of concept. This was kind of a dumper concept. Another concept we called was the washing machine, where it would pick it up off the ground, and then it would have almost like an auger or a brush, and it would drive the balls in kind of a cylinder up through the center, and it would drive it up into kind of the same hopper type concept. Or there was one more type unique where you kind of had a shooter. There was a lot of kind of shooter where you could directionally shoot the balls into the trailer. So there was some very unique ideas, but some of them around the same concept. So it's kind of neat to see everybody kind of drive in the same direction, but still kind of come up with their own little nuances in their design too.
What about the human element? We talked last time, Bryce, about strategy and how important that was. How does the human element get involved in actually playing the game?
Well, there's human players that sit on the side. There are 6 human players, 1 for each team, 3 for Alliance, that actually shoot these balls trying to get into your opponent's hopper.
Okay.
And so, like, for scouting, you looked at the robot, but you also looked on how good that human player was. Like, because the human player could score upwards of, like, around 30 points a game, and so that would be huge. And so you looked at the human player, not just the robot.
Okay.
And Bryce was actually a human player in the game.
That's why I was.
Yeah.
You did very well.
Thank you.
Yeah, you really did.
We talked about what the machine, what the robot weighs. How much money would you say, because you're talking about, you're doing fundraising now, how much money would you say is involved in this right here, just from, a parts standpoint, not to mention a time standpoint?
I'm not real sure on
Okay.
that.
I would say it's probably to get started off with all of our drives is probably in the $20,000 to $30,000 range, and that may go down next year as you get some of those base components that you need to build on. But I would say it's probably in that range.
And the NASA grant, for example, can you apply for that annually?
Yes.
Or is that a one-time thing?
You can apply for that annually, but there's like a catch to it. Like you have to, for the NASA grant, you would have to submit a chairman's entry. And so like a rookie team can't win the chairman's. The chairman's award is the most prestigious award. And first it looks at like how good your team is. Are you mentoring other teams? Like how well-rounded your team is. And so like they want more people to apply for that. So that's like.
And how are you helping out your community?
Sure.
You know, they want it to be an integrated part of the community, and you could see that in the final ceremonies. They actually had the President's Award groups, and they had videos of how they're really working with the community to make it a part of the community, but also make that group help out the community, you know, so that they're sharing their talents with the rest of the community. So.
Well, speaking about talents, you know, we commented when Bryce was on the first time with Como that, you know, you are just a very impressive young man. And you're what, 16, 17?
17.
Okay.
He's gotten older since.
Well, we all have, you know. But, you know, we were just so impressed with you. I mean, you're a young man, and you're articulate and obviously bright. What have you and some of your professional colleagues learned from working with young folks like Bryce in this competition, in this project?
Well, I think it inspires the mentors when you see good kids like that. You really want to help out. You see that these kids do have a future, you know. They aren't just running around and doing the wrong things. Yeah. They're doing the right things. And those are the types of things that inspire mentors to be like, we want to help out. We want to make this a good program for everybody who's involved.
And what have you, Bryce, learned, not just working with folks like Como and Chris and some of the other mentors, but
it's been all over the country.
Well, exactly. You know, but in putting this whole thing together, in going to competition, I mean, I'm sure you've taken away a lot of lessons from this, haven't you?
Oh yes. Like first off, I want to be an engineer when I grow up, so I'm getting first-hand experience with maybe my future colleagues. They might be, or and so I'm taking. I'm actually really understanding like how engineering like works, and so that's what I'm really taking away.
How many hours do you put into this?
Me personally, or everybody?
To build it.
A lot.
A lot. Okay,
a lot.
Okay. You can't quantify it.
We keep track of our hours. I personally put in like 120 something in 6 weeks, and I was nowhere near the person that was the most there.
And we're requiring the kids that are involved. We're requiring to have them put in so much time on the robot, so they can qualify. If we do get to go to nationals, they do qualify and they put in the additional work to be part of the program. So you have to put in some work to get some back out of it.
Sure. Well, we want to, thank both of you for being here, and thanks to Como, who you can't see, but we know she's there. Yeah. She was making that thing move, and for bringing it down tonight, and for giving up another Thursday night to come visit with us.
We really appreciate you coming back.
If somebody wants to get involved in this program, the next round, when you start building the next one, who should they contact?
You can actually go to waverobotics.com.
Waverobotics.com.
Yes, and there is a link for contacts. I believe it has Comal's contact on there and a couple other people's contact on there. But you can go to waverobotics.com. It has a little bit about our team, about everything about FIRST and stuff like that.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah.
And congratulations.
Thank you.
It's wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, that's going to do it for us. We will see you next time. Until then, take good care. Keep your eye on us. We've got our eye on Oshkosh.